What is up, you guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name's Mackenzie. If you're not new, thank you for coming back. So, I've got a ton of stuff on the table in front of me, and that's because we have a big project ahead of us. You guys saw the title in the thumbnail. This is what we're going to be making. So, about a month ago, I saw this on Pottery Barn's website online. But it was 200 bucks and I didn't feel like paying $200 for it. I was assuming, and I think I am correct, that I should be able to make the same exact thing for about $100 or maybe even a little bit less. So we've got a lot of work to do. I don't want to make this intro super long. Let's just go ahead and get started. Okay guys, so let's just quickly go over all of the things that I am anticipating having to use to make this project. So first and foremost, most important piece is this skeleton. So this isn't just a normal plastic Halloween skeleton. This is a full-size 5-foot posable skeleton. You can probably make just a normal regular plastic Halloween skeleton work, but we want the cloak on this guy to be really spread out and flowy. His arms are gonna hold his cloak out. So having a posable skeleton is just going to make that a whole lot easier rather than trying to work with a plastic skeleton that is quite difficult to pose and get it to stay in place. So yes, a posable skeleton will be a little bit more expensive, but if you look around, you can find yourself a good deal. I picked this one up at Michael's. This one was $80, but I got it for 40% off, so I paid around 50 bucks for it, a little bit less. So skeleton is most important. Then we've got our drill bits, screws, wires, all of that is to actually get this piece hung once we're done with it. Then I've got this puck light. So I had 3 of these kicking around. Thankfully, they're not much. I think they're around 10, 15 bucks at Lowe's or Home Depot. And this is what I'm gonna use to have his mouth light up. And we're going to have to completely remove all of the features on this skull anyway. So a Dementor doesn't really have eyes. It doesn't have any detailed features on its face besides that mouth that sucks the life out of people. So we're going to completely transform his face with some modeling clay. So I'm going to be using the Sculpey Air Dry modeling clay. I love this stuff. You don't need to bake it. It's air dry. It's got a good working time. I love this stuff. It definitely works the best in my opinion. So I've got a nice good brick of Sculpey Air Dry clay. Then once we're done with that, we're gonna wanna paint it. So I've got a can of matte black spray paint, and you guys know me, my favorite clear sealer, the Krylon Matte Finish Clear Sealer. So next up, I picked up Creepy Cloth. Creepy Cloth is just that almost cheesecloth looking fabric, but it's a much bigger opening. So it's that black creepy cloth that you get around Halloween time. You can find these at Walmart, CVS, the dollar store, anything like that. Then I've got a ton of tulle. So I think that's everything we're gonna use for this project, but we've got a lot of work to do, so let's just go ahead and get started. The very first thing we're gonna have to do is work on this guy's face and remove his legs. So I'm gonna clear my desk, I'm gonna zoom you guys in a little bit closer, and we'll get going on our Dementor. Okay, so it is kind of a bummer. This one's eyes do light up, but they light up red. And Dementors don't have red glowing lights, so we're not even going to end up using that aspect of this skeleton, but that's okay. He was the cheapest option I could find for a posable skeleton. So I'm gonna remove all his tags, all his wires, and I think the first thing I'm gonna do is try to remove his legs. I'm just going to unscrew his leg bone from his hip bone, and we are just going to save these legs for use in another Halloween project. Okay, legs are removed, so we can get all of these tools out of the way because now we're going to start working on his face, on his head, and getting that light installed for his mouth. Okay, so I haven't really exactly planned out how I'm going to do this yet. All I know is I want this puck light to fit up inside his mouth a little bit better. Okay, so I got an idea. I just ran to Michael's. What if we keep the jaw on because we're going to have to use this to kind of create this elongated face. And then I just take something like a shot glass, stuff all these little twinkle lights into the shot glass, and then we have the perfect round light that I was looking for because all of this is going to be covered with modeling clay anyway. And I've got a little remote light here. I figured I'd pick up purple ones because once I started looking at these lights, I was like, maybe it would be cool to do a different color. We're gonna have to make some sort of shield just to kind of blur that area and really direct all of the light to the front. Awesome, okay. I'm much happier with this decision. So now all we've got to work on is actually getting the clay or the Sculpey on this guy's face. And I think we can just kind of start throwing some air dry clay on. So I'm going to take all of my jewelry off and we're gonna start sculpting this face. I printed out a kind of just a reference photo for a Dementor. And as you can see, the back of the head is really elongated. He has no features, he has no eyes. All he has is that open mouth. We're gonna have to cover all of these features and the only thing we're leaving open is this little hole area to show the light through. Okay, so I just want to mention here, whenever you're doing such thick layers of really any kind of clay, you do want to fill that empty space with something like foil. So the thicker you make that, the higher of a chance it's going to be that it's going to crack, especially with an air dry clay. So fortunately for us, we're making a Dementor and those cracks are going to kind of work to our advantage later in this project. So I'm really only filling the space that really, really needs it because it would just be such an insane amount of clay. And then I'm just going to put a light layer of clay on top of those pieces of foil. I got the foil to stick in place with just a little bit of hot glue and then cover it right up. Okay guys, so as you just saw, I was kind of going over what's left of the body and just giving it a quick little buff with some sanding paper, just a really light grip, because I'm just trying to remove this little bit of surface shine that's all over this plastic because we do want the paint to stick to it. So I will be back in about 24 hours when this face is completely dry, then we can start sanding it down and start painting our skeleton. Alrighty guys, so it has been 24 hours, our clay is completely rock hard and dry, so now we can start sanding it. So like I said yesterday, I did leave this all looking pretty rough just because the Dementor face itself is pretty rough. It doesn't look smooth, it looks very like scarred up and aged. So when I'm gonna go in and sand, I'm going to kind of more so just focus on smoothing out the edges so when we paint it, it doesn't look like just a mask right here. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Alrighty, so as you guys just saw, I finished sanding his face down and I also added a little bit of detail around his mouth. So I added in a whole bunch of these lines to kind of look like scars moving in towards this thing's mouth. I also added in a couple nostril holes because I wanted the nostrils to look just like Lord Voldemort. So I just added a tiny bit of detail and I kept everything very rough, very crackly looking. We want it to look very aged and rough, essentially. So my original plan was to take this thing outside and just quickly spray paint it, that would definitely be the easiest thing to do. However, today it is pouring rain outside, thunderstorms all day, so we're gonna have to take the much longer route and hand paint this whole thing. But good news is we can do a pretty rough job of it. So the only thing that's really going to be visible is this portion of the face, and everything else is gonna be pretty well cloaked. So I do want some of this bone color to kind of show through on the body. So I'm not going to completely cover the body. I'm just gonna kind of lightly almost dry brush the entire thing. I think that's my plan as of right now. But the face I am going to paint completely black. So I've got my little jug of black acrylic paint here because I do like to water down all my acrylic paint so it's just not so thick and gloopy, because I just get those cheap giant gallon jugs from Michael's and it is very thick, especially over time. So I just pre-mix it with a little bit of water, put it in this little jug so I don't have to keep pumping it out from that gallon. So I've got a couple craft paintbrushes here and we're just going to get this thing painted up real quick. Okay, so I let this thing dry and I did take it outside. It's just lightly sprinkling now. So I went underneath my deck umbrella and just gave it a quick clear coat with that Krylon matte finish spray sealer. Now I'm gonna go in and start working on the detail. The reason I did the clear coat before this is just so I can move this piece around and not worry about any of the paint scratching off anymore. So we're sealed in. Now I'm gonna go in with some detail on his face and on his body. So I've got some white paint, black, brown, and green, and I'm just gonna go in and kind of highlight all of these scarred or creased looking areas on his face. Then give him another clear matte coat, and then we'll work on finishing this guy up. Okay guys, so the detail on his face and body is done. Now we gotta start getting ready to actually put this thing together and hang it up. So first thing I'm gonna have to do is get these lights in place and kind of hot glue them down. Okay, now we've got the hardest parts done. The battery pack is in place, face is painted, body's painted, everything's sealed, batteries are in. Now we've got to figure out how we're going to drape this fabric. But before we do that, I think it will be best to put all of our hanging screws in place first. So I think we've already got the hanger on the head. We're just gonna need a hanger on its back. So I think what I'm going to do is flip this guy over. So I'm gonna get my drill ready. We're gonna drill just teeny tiny pilot holes just so we don't crack this plastic. Now comes the hard part, is actually draping this fabric. So I think what I'm going to do is hang it from the head. We're gonna drape the fabric over the body and kind of just figure out the general placement, and then we'll start lifting it up wire by wire. Does that make sense? All right, so let me clear my space. I'm gonna have to do this up against my corner right here where I've already got a 40-pound anchor in the ceiling. Okay guys, so like I said here, I'm just kind of winging it, figuring out how I want to drape all this fabric over this skeleton. So I'm kind of going back and forth, looking at the reference photo, really just trying to mimic the look of some sort of cloak. So I am pinning back just a thrown over piece of that tulle to look like a shirt, and then I'm going to really start building up that cloak with the creepy cloth, because that's what's going to give it that extra eerie look, very flowy. And then I'm just kind of pinning it nice and tight around the bones, so the rest of it that's hanging will flow, but it's never going to move from where I really have it set.
So unfortunately, no matter where you get creepy cloth, it's usually pretty small sections. So not only do I have to kind of sew it in place tightly around the bones, I'm also having to sew the creepy cloth pieces together to get it to look as long as I want it to. Now, the last couple things you're going to see me do here is cutting out a perfect circle of tulle. I did about 4 layers to cover his mouth and create that perfect shade in front of our twinkle lights. Then I'm also going to add one more screw at the tailbone. This is going to make that perfect silhouette when I actually hang him up.
Okay guys, I am dying. It is warm in here. This has been quite a bit of a project, but she's just about done. All I have to do now is hang her up, and I'm just gonna hang her in this corner of my office because unfortunately I can't show you guys outside. So yeah, I'm just going to dim the lights, hang her up, and then I will show you guys the final reveal. But before that, I figured I would just say bye, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video if you did, comment down below, and let me know what do you want to see next, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!